Welcome to the Face-to-Face Ministries podcast, the #1 resource for learning what it means to have a healed heart, connect more deeply with Jesus, and experience true and lasting transformation in your life. I am one of your hosts, Melinda Wilson.
And I'm your other host, Cathy Little. Please hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the fresh content that we're continuing to release. And while you're at it, we greatly appreciate your help in getting the word out by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving us a quick review.
You can also keep up with us by following our social media by searching face-to-faceministries.org on Facebook. And that has no spaces, no numbers, and no caps. And on Instagram at face-to-face-min. And that is all one word.
Our team also offers one-on-one ministry sessions that can be done virtually. And one of our favorite things to do is to train others to do what we do in helping others connect with Jesus. So if you want information on that, we can help you out.
Yeah, and for more information about all the resources, including what Cathy's talking about, our trainings, our events that we offer, visit face-to-faceministries.org. And while you're there, please sign up for our newsletter.
All right, let's dive into today's episode.
Hey, episode 157, y'all. Thanks for listening again, or for the first time.
Yeah, we are so just, the fact that people listen to us is kind of funny.
Well, but I know a lot of people screw up through the beginning, and that's okay. I do it too, even with famous people that we all know and love. It's like, okay, I know the introduction.
So you may not even be here to hear us.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're listening, please raise your hand. Give me a shout out, something, please. How I have longed, and I've said this before, to actually be speaking to people. I mean, I know I'm speaking to people, but I don't know because I'm actually, we're recording this on the phone, so I'm looking at myself. I'm trying to look at the camera, imagining you all beautiful people listening, wishing that we could sit down across from each other over a cup of coffee. Truly, that's my heart.
That would be way, way more fun. Mm-hmm. But thanks for joining us. We're so happy to have you here and so thankful that you listen and that we have an opportunity to share some really awesome guests with you. This is episode 157, so we've been at this for a while. We're not producing content quite as frequently, and there's a reason for that. We've got a whole other world of things that we do, and we just launched, actually started last week, Level 1 Foundations training. It's a 2-month training for people that may not know for sure if they want to go the distance to learn how to be a facilitator. But these are really great tools you can use with your family, small groups, in your just little ministry endeavors you do, or even just sitting across the table from someone at a Starbucks that might need some support or help. This is really wonderful stuff with the Emmanuel approach. And so we've got a new group of students that just started with Foundations last week, and it's an 8-week course going to the end of October. And then you can have a chance to sign up for our next trimester, starts in January. And it's just really wonderful. We get to meet people from all over the world. This is the weirdest thing, y'all. The nations are coming to us. Like obviously, Melinda would go to the nations and fill her passport up millions of times. Yes. But we realize that people that are already in our training have already been impacting people in Ukraine, in Israel, and in Hong Kong. And now we've got some new folks that are in our training that as far away as New Zealand attending, and heart for taking the Emmanuel approach to Uganda and Kenya and other countries. It's just really, really wonderful to see what God is doing in spreading the beautiful simplicity and gentleness of the Emmanuel approach. And it's not just for heart healing. It's actually for discipleship and intimacy with Jesus and actually following Jesus and watching him and learning from him. It is so, so beautiful to watch. We just never get tired of it.
Indeed. We don't. And we're also really excited to keep producing this podcast. And if you like what you're hearing, feel free to support this endeavor. I know a lot of people have commercials and supporters. We don't have any sponsors.
You guys don't have to listen to commercials.
Yeah, some people do the Patreon. We don't even do that. It does cost us money. I'm shameless plug for if you are enjoying the content and want to invest in and contribute toward and help us to continue to keep the content coming, feel free to give us a donation at facetofaceministries.org/give, or just give me some cash, cold hard cash. Send it my way. Melinda Wilson, I'll give you my address. But we are excited about our next guest, and we do have a few more lined up. So
yeah, we've got some more content coming.
It's really, I'm loving the conversation. And Tara Boothby is our Canadian. So we're going international, y'all.
Yay. Not the first Canadian we've interviewed.
Absolutely not. But she is an author of a book called Love and Love's Energy, and how attachment science proves that love nurtures our biological nature, impacts our positive view of ourselves, of others, and of God, and teaches us all how to love. Hello. I think we all need to read that. Really so we had a fantastic conversation with Tara. She's really real, and she is a psychologist working as a clinician with clients. And so I know that this conversation is going to inspire you, motivate you, maybe challenge you, certainly teach us all some things as we learn and grow together.
It's good stuff. Here she is. Well, welcome to the Face to Face Ministries podcast, Tara Boothby. We are so happy to see you. It's lovely to have you on the call today. And thank you so much for your time. I know it took a while to get this scheduled and all, but we've been looking forward to it ever since we met you at the Open Table Conference in June. So I'm excited about talking about your book and about the things that are passionate for you. Thanks for being part of the conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. And I've been looking forward to it. So this is the second podcast I've ever done.
Really?
I do a lot of vlogging. I go on our local news. I get to do some other cool things. But podcasts, I'm just trying to find my way in there. So I'm pumped.
Local news. Cool. Tell me more.
Why are you on the local news, Tara? And where is local to you? Because people are like, what accent is that? So tell us about yourself a little bit.
And I was going to look up the longitude of where I live because I thought that would be interesting to Americans. So I'm up in Canada, and right now we live in Edmonton, which is northern Alberta. But I'm actually visiting my parents in Canmore, Alberta, which is the Canadian Rocky Mountains, just outside of Banff, and it's absolute paradise. It's paradise. And I was just at a 3-day music festival, and it was all love and goodness and mountains and blue rodeo, and it was magic. So yeah, I'm up in Alberta. I've lived in Western Canada my whole life. I was born in Grand Prairie. That's where William Paul Young was born. And he is one of the only people I've ever met who was born in Grand Prairie, knowingly.
Wow.
Yeah. Besides me, it's just a weird thing. I was born there and we moved 2 weeks later when I was a kid. So when I met Paul, I was like, I just love you even more.
What's not to love, man? Just one of my favorite people.
Wow. Yes. I'm just thinking about Banff because I've only seen pictures and people like, am I in Switzerland in the Alps? And it's stunning. And the fact that you're right there, do your parents have another guest room or space for a tent in your yard? Because that is like my jam and passion in my heart to be like that.
I know, it's spectacular. People always ask. They have like this storage locker down where they park, and they're like, maybe we'll start renting this out because so many people ask. They have couches.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, a couch will work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if people don't know what that looks like, just go look up BANFF.
Yes.
There's some national parks and stuff there too. They're just gorgeous.
Yeah. It's paradise. It's so special. So we're really far north. I'm really far north, and then Banff and Canmore are just closer to the border to the United States. So yeah. And then CTV is our big news outfit in Canada, and we have a local branch in Edmonton. And I just had an opportunity through a connection to start going on there and doing psychology spots.
Nice.
And I have a nice relationship with the producer. And so he gets me to come on pretty monthly. I'm not going to go on this month. Talk about love and attachment, and then talk about all sorts of things. Like we just did something on doom scrolling.
I don't know what that is, but now I do.
Yes.
I mean, I've never heard that, but I immediately can imagine what that
doom
is.
scrolling. Wow. Well, you just mentioned you do these psychology spots. And so it might be helpful to our audience that you introduce yourself and maybe establish some of your credibility as somebody who can speak on this, because we know you have the goods for this, but our audience has not ever met you before. So would love to have you introduce yourself and give some of your background and some of those things that qualify you for that spot, and to talk about the things that you do.
Sure. Thank you. And I'm just so happy to be here with you guys. And when we met, and I'm truly thankful. So thank you for letting me be here. So I am a psychologist, and I'm a registered psychologist in Alberta and British Columbia. So those are the two regions that I can practice. And I went to Briarcrest Bible College after high school. That's there's a few cool alumni, such as Brad Jerzak, that went there, and I'm very different than when I went there, and it seems that he is as well. They were there before me, him and Eden, and I got a degree in theology, but I didn't land a husband, so there's not a lot that women with degrees in theology can do if they didn't get a man. We called it bridal quest, and I mean I don't care. I'm glad I didn't get one, because it would have been the wrong one. However, it felt like failure at the time, right? Because that's kind of what the old fundamental broken view of feminism or feminine quality was. But I had the opportunity to go to another Christian school, Trinity Western University in British Columbia, and did my master's in psychology there. And then I met my husband, who was the right choice. And I lovingly refer to him as a sinner who loves Jesus. And that's the best kind of person. We moved back to Alberta and started a practice, or I started a practice with my parents and my husband. Actually, they were my business partners for a long time. And I've been running a big outfit there. We have like 14, 15 psychologists. I always lose track. And it's kind of like a beautiful ministry, I think, of myself. Recently at Open Table Conference, it came to me to think of myself as a shepherd, and I know my sheep. And then my sheep are shepherds to their sheep. So I found a church, actually, is what I've come to view our clinic as we've got this beautiful place where we include everybody.
Wow. Well, wouldn't that be wonderful if all churches included everybody? And I'm not getting into anything. That's Jesus right there, the inclusivity of Jesus and the love for all humans and seeing the value in them. And, psychology, why psychology for you, Tara? And how did what put you on the path toward being a psychologist?
Oh, well, it was, I thought I would be a camp director, actually. When I went to Bible school, I was like, I'll just be a camp director. I love camp ministry. I was a lifeguard, and I worked at a lot of camps in high school and through my college years. The last camp that I worked at Canadian Sunday School Missionary Alliance Camp, and they're so evangelism focused, and I've never been good at evangelism. Now it makes more sense. But I realized we'd be there with these kids, and some of these kids had some significant issues going on, like cutting or really, really heavy dark depression, thoughts of suicide, heavy ADD, and we take their meds away. And I just had this epiphany that 1 week wasn't enough. And then everything kind of fell apart and fell into place, and I ended up studying psychology, and that was really, it just moved on its own path, actually, that my life stepped into the psychology realm.
What do you see when you meet with a client, well, first of all, are you primarily like one-on-one, the sort of stereotypical, or what we know as a psychologist, someone laying on their couch? I don't know if that's even ever true. That's just in the psychiatry. Isn't that just in the cartoons or the movies? Like, does anyone actually do that? Lay down on the couch?
Like teenagers lay down on couches. They sometimes sit upside down or do all sorts of, I've had them do makeup in my office. I've had them do all sorts of interesting things. But I am an experiential attachment focused clinician, and I am certified with emotionally focused therapy. That's developed by Dr. Sue Johnson. And I'm a therapist as well as a supervisor. So I do a lot of mentoring and consulting and helping other clinicians to get certified with this beautiful experiential model. And I kind of round robin my passion. So when I fell in love with EFT and attachment work, it was really the parenting piece. And then I moved into the couples work and understanding the cycle and the pattern of communication, that love energy in a marriage relationship, and how to work with couples. And then I really fell in love with the family work and all of the different love energy, the relationships, the moving in and the moving out of the different dyads in the family system. And then now I'm back more working with the individual piece of really the working with the relationship between self and internally, and the dynamic between the client and myself, and how we're moving in and moving out of our attachment experience in the room. And then I always seek mentorship. So my mentors kind of lead me into whatever passion I'm going to sit in for a while.
They're mowing today.
Oh, I can't hear it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
I would love for you to unpack. You said you're certified in this attachment thing. What does that look like? What does that mean? Like, what is that certification in the attachment thing?
Yeah, I wish I had one of Sue's books here. So Sue Johnson is, she actually won the Order of Canada. She's amazing. Sorry, she just passed away. So,
wow.
So.
Okay, take a minute.
And so Sue Johnson and her profound books that are written for the average person would be the book Hold Me Tight and Love Sense. And emotionally focused therapy is just really an experiential model where we're working with whatever comes into the room and helping people to process through and understand how communication breaks down and how we can be accessible, responsive, and emotionally engaged to have more fluidity, to safely move out and self-regulate, and safely move in and co-regulate as we need. But what we do in therapy that's super cool is we look for these emotional handles, something important that somebody says, and then we help to make it come more and more alive, more and more emotionally impacting, and help to sculpt what we call as a corrective experience, where people share and really highlight the experience of sharing, speaking, and listening, and how that transforms transforms our view of self and view of others.
I'm really, this kind of conversation, Tara, I'm on the edge of my seat because, and first of all, just to acknowledge your own emotion that is here, that was here, that is still there, and maybe not right at the surface as you continued talking, but to even stop and acknowledge that, Tara, because, and I love that you allowed yourself to express and feel, and whether we cut it or not, I don't even want to cut it, because I asked Paul Young a question a few months ago, and I was like, ugh, and I was choking up, and I thought I should cut it. And then I'm like, no, because I feel like when it's modeled, then it gives people permission that this is normal and it's okay to feel emotions. In fact, it's important. And you know what, I was reading more about you last night, Tara, and even your Sojourner's Psychology website. And it says, describing you, Tara, your goal is that clients will gain more awareness of their emotions and learn skills to build supportive relationships, and that you support clients to facilitate the sharing and processing of emotions. So from what I've experienced and witnessed in this healing work and in human life in general, is that many people, maybe most, I don't know, are not aware of their emotions, first of all. And then they don't know what to do with them if they start feeling something. Perhaps they're so used to blocking them. But just getting your perspective, Tara, what do you feel is, or what have, in your experience, is the block or the hindrance or resistance to people connecting with their emotions?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And I'm fine with crying. It happens, you know. It's good for our brain. Dr. Daniel Amen says it's one of the fastest ways to cool down a hot brain. And then with some of my baby psychologists, so I get to mentor what we call provisional psychologists to be full-fledged psychologists. We did a vlog, and my dear friend Tony Zerbin, who does somatic work, is like, emotion is motion. And so I think of that a lot. And Freud, I just shared this on our Sojourn Instagram, a Freud quote that I love, where he's like, if we don't acknowledge what's inside and let it out, like anger or the ugly emotions, there's no bad feeling. They just kind of feel gross. However, they all have a necessary place to move through. So if I know I'm sad or I know I'm angry and I give it motion, then it comes out in its true form. If I don't express anger as anger, then it comes out as something else. And that's when we risk violence. So for us, social justice minded, nonviolent protest people, this is like really curious and important. What is nonviolent protest? Well, part of it is being able to know how am I feeling and how to honor that and express that in healthful ways, or else I will do violence. And I think, so I hope this is answering you. I can answer this in so many ways because I talk about it in my book as well. But I think a lot about violence. And I think sometimes we view violence only in terms of like war or hyperaggression. But when we get slow and realize that like violence to myself is blocking my feelings. So if I'm blocking my feelings and I'm doing violence inside, then I run the risk of doing violence outwardly with my words, with my actions, with my beliefs.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that perspective of even the word violence, because it conjures up in most people's minds, certainly in mine, like you're saying, some kind of fighting, war, conflict that we watch, whether it in a movie or on the news, and people tend to shy away from violence. I think a lot of people do. We don't like it. It does something in us that kind of grates against our nervous system, perhaps. But I'm curious to unpack that a little bit more, Tara. You're talking about we do violence to ourselves if we don't allow ourselves to feel those things. And I, even just the other day, and I'm going to be totally vulnerable, I was frustrated about something. I don't even know the situation, doesn't matter. But the anger was the first thing that came to the surface, and it wasn't at anybody. There was nobody even around. And that I found that interesting. So it was the situation. It wasn't even big. And I had a moment of going, why am I angry?
Yeah.
What triggered me, activated me, whatever word, maybe there's going to be another word. Trigger is overused, I know, and some people get triggered by the word trigger, but anyway, but then holding myself emotionally going, what, Melinda, like actually stopping going, why am I feeling angry? And it seems to me that anger is the easiest emotion to perhaps get in touch with, or I don't know if easy is the right word, but psychoanalyze me, please, Tara. Let me tell you about the whole situation. No, I'm just kidding. I'll pay. I'll put pennies in the computer. How much per minute? Yeah, dimes, like an old payphone. But you know, holding space for ourselves, even to go, what is this? And I wonder how we can navigate when the emotion is anger or frustration and we want to do violence to someone, not I don't mean physical, but even in our words and our attitude, our energy, our aggressive tone. How do you have a way, or even in yourself, of stopping and going, what's really going on here? Because I guess I'm really passionate about not only being self-aware, but helping other people become self-aware to go, okay, I'm right now in this moment. What am I feeling? And then why am I feeling it? Do you feel like it's important to stop and like analyze, or just let it move out of the body?
Well, I love that. And I think, again, it's just nice to meet each other in vulnerability. One of my mentors, Kent Hoffman, would say, will you meet me in my immutable place? And so there's some of these things about our emotions that just feel so unmeetable. And if I don't meet me in that place, how am I going to learn how to meet somebody else in that place? And how am I going to be able to let somebody meet me in that place? But when I'm thinking, or I'm listening, we're thinking together. So you're thinking and I'm thinking with you. And I'm like, well, what I like about what you're saying right now is also what is our opinion about the emotion? And how do we look at our emotion through eyes of guilt, of shame, of humiliation? So when I get angry, I think I feel shame. And when I cry, I feel humiliated. But I know those things. I've made friends with shame. I've made friends with humiliation. I've made friends with my tears. So when I'm tearing up for a very good reason and humiliation shows up, I'm just like, hello, humiliation. What's going on? You know, we can have a small, brief conversation because we have a long-term relationship that's acknowledged, me and humiliation or shame or anger, sadness, anxiety and I are just thick as thieves. So I think that also has helped me figure out how to work with people, is because I have a very busy brain and I don't stop thinking. And with my anxiety, long time in the beginning of my career, I would often teach people these two simple questions of, you play the tape of the day, figure out the point where anxiety or whatever it was showed up, and then consider the whole story. Whatever, I left the house 5 minutes late, or that person looked at me sideways when I was getting coffee in the staff room, or high school, all sorts of high school scenarios that could drive us crazy when we were young. And then asking ourselves, okay, what can I do about this right now? And what do I need to do to feel better? So if I'm afraid that I left the office door unlocked and it's 3 a.m, I can't very well go and check to see if the office door is locked. But I can talk myself through what I'll do next time to make sure I remember whether the office door is locked.
You know, and it sounds like that's a self-compassion. Just I mentioned this, we interviewed Felicia Merle yesterday, and I mentioned you, and I mentioned that we were about to talk to you, and her face lit up. Like, these people at the open table, and you all know each other. It's so cool. And you're all coming from different perspectives and backgrounds. But I was telling her that I've been meeting with a spiritual director since like March or April. And self-compassion is one of a main theme that comes up in our conversations, because talking about parts and a little bit of IFS stuff, internal family systems.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about feeling angry? And I think that inquiry, being curious with yourself, is an act of self-compassion. Would you call it that, or do you have a different terminology for it?
I think it is self-compassion, and I I think that, like, part of with my book, I I started with the view of self, that self-love, because I felt like where we're at in society right now, we need this habit and this new experience of true self-compassion. This self-love is not superficial. It's really about knowing, and this sounds so cliche, but it's beautiful, is that we're flawed and fabulous. So I am so, so flawed, but I am also so, so fabulous. And I don't need to just pretend I'm all fabulous and try to hide away my flawed damagedness, because that damagedness comes along for the ride with me, and it helps to inform the vibrance of who I am. Self-compassion is a principle of social justice. Like, how do we do compassion for others if we don't do compassion for ourselves? And how do we do love energy with other people? How do we foster environments that feel safe and healthy for others if we don't have that safety and healthiness inside? And then if we're doing all of that, it's easy to wonder about this grander mass of love that we're all included in, which is God. In my opinion, love's energy is this beautiful wealth of vibrance with tons of inclusion. It's so inclusive it's impossible to not be in it, is what I trust. But I think too that I found the truth of who Jesus is in attachment theory, and I don't think I knew that before.
Okay, go on.
Do tell.
Well, I
open up the can. Here we go.
Yeah, and I love Felicia. So when Felicia was the second person to hold my book, Love's Energy, in her hands. She is the second person who ever read it.
Let me just hold it up, and I don't know if it's going to be backwards.
It won't be.
Okay, so when I saw this book, Love and Love's Energy, those of you who can't are just listening, I was like, I have to get it. I didn't even read the subtitle. I did see attachment science, and because of what we're doing with brain science and a manual approach, but I also love this word, energy. And you keep, and we touched on that yesterday with Felicia, and actually sort of inferred you in that conversation, because we know that someone loves us when we're with them. And I think that's the brain science too, of like your brain subconsciously, even quicker than conscious thought, like, I know they're glad to be with me. And there's an energy exchange. And so can we talk about, we all talk about, because we're all included in this circle of infinity, of this love energy and attachment. I mean, this is okay, so I'll just read it for those of you who aren't seeing it. How attachment science, this is the subtitle of the book, how attachment science proves that love nurtures our biological nature, impacts our positive view of ourselves, of others, and of God, and teaches us all how to love. That packs a punch.
Yeah. Who wrote that?
Spend about a half hour on each of those little statements. No.
Yeah. Well, it's, so the thing about evolutionary psychology sees that we have nature and nurture. And there's so much about our nature, and, the biology of who we are is brilliant and vibrant. And I am not the best at remembering all the biology stuff or all the neurology stuff. I sort of make up word pictures. I talk about the amygdala in the book, and I think it's a beautiful description, but it's definitely not scientific. It's metaphor. And we look at our biology and we make sense, but then why do we need relationships to survive? And why is there such truth in the intricacies of good relationships, and how that increases our lifespan, that increases our livelihood, that gives us self-esteem, that does all these amazing good things for who we are. And yet damaged relationships evoke such damage internally and a damaged view of God. So there's all these intricacies of like, okay, well, we have attachments. And attachments, I don't think is a great word, because it sounds like this over-connectedness, whereas love energy is the fluidness between us. And there are times when we move in for connection. There are times when we move out for connection. But when we're conceived in utero, so I believe this, not all psychologists believe this, but that our attachment story, our love energy story starts, and we are starting to have a relationship with our mother. And as the baby in utero grows, they're more and more aware of this little world they live in and the world that is outside of them. And they can hear things, and that's why we play music for them and all these beautiful things, trying to foster brain development and everything. But that curiousness about the relationship, and as the child is born, and I think that babies think they're dying when they're being born. You're in your perfect world and you're like squeezed and pressed and pushed out. And then baby's given to mom, and they have this beautiful experience where mom's body gets a rush of cortisol, and baby remembers, like, this is where I belong. And then the mother or the caregiver child relationship, dad, auntie, grandma, adoptive parents, caregivers, all these important things where this child is starting to have these dyadic relationships and learning, what does my caregiver like, and how can I be appealing to them so that I don't die? Because if I'm screaming my head off and this person leaves, then I'm going to die. Or if I'm not cute enough, or if I'm not stoic enough, and these things that start to inform the blocks, like you were talking about, those blocks, or what I call in my book, the defaults, these automatic habitual ways of being in the world to avoid self-compassion, basically, to avoid what we fear is flawed. So you see these little kids. I have little kids. My daughter's turning 8 and my son will turn 7 in December. So they're little and they're wild. And they do wild things. So my daughter got stuck in a swing yesterday with her auntie. It's like the blind leading the blind. And my sister will laugh when I say that. But my sister's like trying to discreetly tell me the story, and my daughter's overhearing. And you can see when we tell those stories, the little look on children's face, like they're navigating. Is this okay or not okay? Did I do something wrong? Am I being delightful in this story, or am I being flawed in this story? And you can see when the child falls into the fear that I am flawed, that this is shameful, or when they fall into this is delightful. And all of that attachment dynamic is informing who they are. So you guys can say something. I didn't really get to the God piece, but we can get there.
Well, I think you said something about, I can't remember exactly, but we talked about attachment in Jesus. But I also, I like where you're going with the changing that to the energy, because the moving in and moving out, because
Yeah.
I've kind of always against the word attachment, because like you said, it feels very, for those who are just listening, it's that putting their fingers together and like, we're attached, and or gluing things together. And I understand, even like Jim Wilder calls it sticky love, has said that sticky love, which that sounds better to me than attachment too. But again, we were talking with Felicia yesterday that language is so important, and people's experience with language, that word can conjure up all sorts of things in one person and someone else. That's why I heard the other day, someone said, I can't do the word trigger anymore. It's overused. It's almost
Yeah.
abused to the point of it's a justification for being rude or a jerk or whining. I'm triggered. I'm triggered. I'm triggered. So even finding that language that helps people express themselves, but maybe dive back into the Jesus piece as
Yeah.
far as
Well,
the
and
yeah.
uh, yeah, and I think that actually when I talk about attachment, I'm always just talking about Jesus. And when I realized that, like all these things, this like Jesus's heart is that we are delightful, that we are delighted in, and that when we're escalated, that's the word we use in the experiential model. Is we don't say triggered; it's like escalation. Escalation's a good thing.
Mm,
When I'm with somebody who's escalated and there's emotional safety, I want to lean in
mm,
and be in that space with them and help them notice the feelings so that we can be together and be in a place where there's correction and epiphany. And that to me, all those things, I'm like, I'm just talking about Jesus all the time. And so as I learned about what nurture actually is and discovered this love energy and the self-love energy, and realized that I think it's really important for Christians to wonder about universal hope, as Robert Jensen, I think his first name's Robert, but that's maybe we have universal hope and not universal knowledge.
mm,
That's a transformational statement. I just listened to a podcast that Chris Green and Father Kenneth Tanner did with Robert Jensen, and that's what he said. And I was like, that was the thing that I had so wrong before I started to discover the hope of attachment theory. That Jesus-y hopefulness and delightfulness, caregiving, uh, watching over, sharing, organizing feelings, wiser, stronger other that wants the best for us and is not requiring us to have universal knowledge. So that's transformational, that piece. Like, we don't have all the answers.
Well, the goal obviously is for that healthy connection with people, the
Mm-hmm.
nurturing, healthy interaction, that's way it's meant to be, that sticky love. And then this whole attachment styles and attachment theories and all is basically a way to help you kind of understand why you're not having that, or some areas where you might want to look to go after some healing if you tend to relate in a way that is not the healthy way we're meant to have, that strong, healthy attachment with others and with Jesus, with God. We're supposed to have that because, there's the different styles, and it's not an excuse like, well, that's just my attachment style. It's more like, hey, this is an indicator of an area where I need to grow. And there may be some things that led me to this particular style of attaching, which is not healthy. So what can I do? How can I care for my heart? How can I uh, allow Jesus into those places that sent me in that direction for a disorganized or, dismissive or whatever? How can I get healing in those areas so that I am able to fully be present in a relationship and have that
Mm-hmm.
connected, sticky love? Because I think that's what we're talking about, is the goal is the healthy attachment, and growing in that is just all part of our journey of doing our work, because things go wrong. Not
Yeah.
every baby got put on their mother's breast, and there's
Yes.
all sorts of different things that happen that can can tweak the trajectory of the healthy forming of those bonds.
Yeah. And it's never too late is what we know with attachment theory. And to me, that's a Jesus-y thing to say too, that as we discover more of the truth of this grander mass of love's energy, we start to really uncover a freedom and a space to say it's never too late. I didn't do that one awful sin, which I hate that word, but that one terrible thing that was gonna like push me outside the gate. There's a helicopter going by if you
We can't hear it.
Okay. Sorry.
No worries.
The joys of vacation homes, or other people's houses. Anyhow, but that old fear of not knowing the perfect answer or doing the exact wrong thing and realizing I am other. But as Brian Zahnd wrote so beautifully in Farewell to Mars, there's no them, just us. Mm. And then when you're talking about Felicia, I think of, the things that are of love's kind. The things that are of love's kind are the things we want in us. The more we're embodying love, the more we are able to express love. But if I'm really embodying love, then I get to allow love to interact with those parts of me that I don't want to interact with. And I think that's the fire of God. I think that psychology, and I read a commentary on Dante's Divine Commedia. I'm going to SSU doing a second master's because everybody should go there. St. Stephen's University.
I agree. I want to so bad. I just wish I had time.
It's unbelievably amazing to be in a school that is so scaffolding of meeting us in our longing to understand social justice and theology and reconciliation, and to interact with material in a way that helps us not show that we're learning something, but like embody the learning. Mm-hmm. So I was in this course on Dante and T.S. Eliot with Ron Dart, who I love. And I read this commentary and on the Divine Commedia, and they refer to Purgatorio as a psychoanalysis. And I agree. I think there is this moving through those 7 deadly sins, moving through these parts of who we are that seem so gross, gluttony and wrath and lust and scary words. Lust. Ooh, people don't like talking about that. I do. But they're things that we want love to burn through. And I believe, and I truly express this to myself, and I think lots of our friends say it in different ways as well at the open table, is I want as much fire here as possible. And then that self-compassion thing, to look back on who we were when we didn't know what we didn't know. Like when we didn't understand what social justice was, or just how immeasurable this inclusive love is. I love that person too. She's kind of awesome. Mm. I like this person now better because I'm living so much more in a heart of love, but all of those parts of who we are this is something I think Christians get wrong, is we just look to the belief that we're loved, but we're not just loved. We are loved, we are lovable, and we are loving. And without acknowledging our lovable, I'm lovable, I'm fabulous, I'm lovable, and acknowledging and embodying that I am loving helps me be loving in ways that I wasn't when I didn't acknowledge that I was loving. My identity is to be a loving person, to be a lovable person, and to be a loved person.
Yeah. That is much more well-rounded, in a sense, full. And I'm hearing that. And I think that even starting from that place of loved is hard for a lot of people to believe, and then lovable, and those two things, I think maybe we start there, but it's not even a start. I'm the whole I'm reading actually Anam Cara by John Donahue, who was an Irish poet and writer, and everyone needs to read it. But I'm only on page like 30 because I just read one sentence, and I need to sit in this and camp out for days. But the infinite, and a friend of mine and I were having a conversation. She said infinitude. We don't know if that's a word, but that infinitude, that symbol of infinity where or circle, like there's no beginning, no end. It's not a matter of, I've been thinking about this too. It's not a matter of like the whole transformation piece, Tara. It's making me think that you loved the girl before too. It's not, oh, she's a piece of crap because that's how it's before and after. I feel like a lot of not even just Christian, but human sort of marketing toward transformation is here's you before, here's you after, with no grace for the in between, with no love for, well, like let's say it's a weight loss thing and I want to lose 50 pounds. Oh God, I can't wait to get to there. And we see it in marketing. We see it in how everything is advertised, not just weight loss, even spirituality and inner healing. Like we're going to get you from here to there. And once you're on this path of A, B, C, D, E, then you're good. Now you're healed. And I feel this is and I've been in the inner healing world for decades, most of my life. And it's not a slam against it. It's just recognizing that there's this sort of promise and guarantee of if you do this, then you'll get this. And it's the same like marketing thing in the world, if you want to call it that. But I'm walking in more, for me, of a grace of that infinity. I'm different than I was 5 years ago, like you're saying, Tara, but to be able to hold space and love that place. Like I loved myself 5 years ago, instead of going, oh, I can't believe I used to do that. Oh, that Melinda 30 years ago. Oh, and instead of going, this encompasses all of me. And so that path of transformation includes me 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And talk about all inclusive or inclusivity. And that I've been pondering this in my own heart the last several months. So I love this kind of conversation because I feel like it brings it into this place of, oh, we're giving language to this, and it's bringing definitions to my mind too, Tara. And you're saying it a different way than I've been thinking it. And I love different ways of looking at this. So I'd love for you to continue on, because one thing that I wrote down that is just even on the back of your book, just get her book and read the back of it, and you can camp out there for a while, honestly. But and you say learning to love all the parts of who we are is transformative, and this is the beginning of our love energy discovery. And talk about this book teaches us through theory as much as through personal story and vivid self-reflection exercises to love ourselves so we are better able to give and receive love with others. Do you feel that it is possible to truly love others if we don't really love ourselves?
No. I remember, actually, I was like a kid. I think I was in junior high, and I was having a sleepover with a friend. And she said, we were talking about boys. I'm sure I was very boy crazy. Not lucky at landing getting boys, but I was very boy crazy. And so we were talking, she had a boyfriend, and she said her dad had told her, people can only love you to the depth that you love yourself. And I've never forgot that. And I thought it was so genius. I've shared that with multiple clients and things, that there's different ways this shows up, but for me, how I can experience it with myself and knowing my own sort of attachment design or who I am in the world, is I can present as having a false bottom. I mean, I think that in different ways, a lot of people who've been raised in evangelical Christian church, where we didn't know that all this stuff was accepted and acceptable. So I learned to have depth in conversation and relationships, but not go there into this darker, gross place, the gross, cringy stuff. The place where escalation lives, and the place that when something hits us sideways and it lands in there, that's what we might call trigger land, but it's just our escalation. If we don't make friends with it, if we don't look into the basement and see what's under there, then, who knows what's rotting down there. And all of a sudden we smell something rotten, and then our behavior is going to be informed by whatever that scent is. So when we crack the floor open, or we just open up that door and look at it through the eyes of love with another safe person, if possible. That's why therapy is a beautiful thing, is it's nice to have an ally when you're going into those dark places. But some people do it on their own. I think I've done a lot on my own. I think that's okay.
Well, in just sort of wrapping up, because I feel like we could talk for hours, and I when I look at some podcasts and it's like an hour and 45 minutes, I'm like, I can't. When am I? I mean, it's going to take me 4 weeks to listen to it because I'm in the car for 10 minutes. So we do want to wrap up, but there's so much here. It's so rich. But in conclusion, and we can reach back out to you, Tara, and have another conversation, because there's so
always
much. Good. Thank you. I'll be on
always
speed dial. So we will revisit, but just in wrapping up, Tara, I would love for you to share for our listeners who may be escalated or just thinking or sad that I don't know how to love myself. I don't know how to let love me. Can you share even a practical or something that they can take away with, I want to start this journey of learning how to love myself, or receiving love for myself, or learning how to even experience being lovable and loved?
Yeah. I think start where you start. So when I just said, do some of the work on your own, and then I was thinking, but I don't believe I'm alone. But I think there's a place where if it is safer for you to think you're doing it on your own, that's okay. And if it's safer for you to go and seek a psychologist, a therapist, a spiritual director, a priest, if you want to read my book and wrestle through it, or if you read my book and you let me be your companion, that's okay. It's just like we start where we start. Podcasts are great. A huge healing piece for my life was I just obsessed over Paul and Brad and Baxter Kruger on YouTube for a long time. And then I randomly found my theology buddy told me about this guy, Brian Zahn, and I started obsessing on him. And Brian was doing an online prayer school. And I felt like, what am I doing? I have no right doing any of this stuff. But I went to Brian's prayer school, and it was fabulous. And Perry, his wife, spoke. And I think that if we just start where we start and feel uncomfortable, that's all fine. And I hope that people can land in this place where you realize that we're actually all included. And it's really friendly. It's actually so friendly to let the fire of God burn out the things that are not of love's kind. There's a friendly place to be in.
Wow. That's so good. And I would really love for you to just take a minute here as we wrap up to let people know where to get your book and how to follow you, find you on socials and all of that. So what would be your instruction to them so they can keep connected or learn more?
Yeah, I would love, I think my book is good. So I think Felicia's book is good too.
Yeah, yes, we agree.
And you can start with Felicia's book, and I forget the subheading, but Felicia Morel, her book, or my book is Love and Love's Energy by Tara Boothby. It's a good last name. It's hard to spell, but but it's B as in Bob, OOTH, B as in Bob, Y. Amazon, Indigo up in Canada. That's our big bookstore. You can order it online there. Kindle is the cheapest. It's like $9.99 on Kindle. And then if you are in Alberta or if you're in Edmonton, we have them at my office.
Okay.
So you can come to Sojourn Psychology. I'm on Instagram and just Tara Boothby. I also have my psychology Instagram, which is Sojourn Psychology. We have a YouTube, Sojourn Psychology, and Facebook, and just all the things. So
All the things.
Thank you so much, Tara.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
we will definitely have a second visit with you. And there's so much to unpack here. And but thank you for your time and investing of your own heart, of your life into this book, and into then investing into other people's lives. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you too, you guys.
All right, y'all. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah.
And we just love Tara. She's wonderful. And listen, we got some more stuff coming your way. We've got some interviews scheduled we're doing over the next couple of weeks. So be watching for more content.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. This is a listener-supported podcast. Thank you for listening to today's value in any way. This is a listener-supported podcast. And if you have received value in any way from our content, by going to our website, face-to-face ministries partner with us financially, and you can do that. Give by going to our website, face-to-face ministries. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful give for tax-deductible giving. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.